Hi, this is Rev Ed with today's devotional from Genesis chapter 46, verses 28 through 34. Jacob had sent Judah ahead of him to Joseph to show the way before him in Goshen, and they came into the land of Goshen. Then Joseph prepared his chariot and went up to meet Israel his father in Goshen. He presented himself to him and fell on his neck and wept on his neck a good while. Israel said to Joseph, "Now let me die, since I have seen your face and know that you are still alive." Joseph said to his brothers and to his father's household, "I will go up and tell Pharaoh, and will say to him, 'My brothers and my father's household, who are in the land of Canaan, have come to me. And the men are shepherds, for they have been keepers of livestock, and they have brought their flocks and their herds and all that they have.' So when Pharaoh calls you and says, 'What is your occupation?' you shall say, 'Your servants have been keepers of livestock from our youth, even until now, both we and our fathers, in order that you may dwell in the land of Goshen. For every shepherd is an abomination to the Egyptians." At long last, Joseph and his father Jacob, also known as Israel, are reunited. And you know that had to be an incredible reunion of love. Jacob's deepest and wildest dream was realized in this moment. He had never had any imagination that Joseph was anything but dead, and yet here he is, alive, and the second most powerful man in Egypt. And so they are reunited, and there's great joy. And then Joseph gives them some interesting advice. He says, "I'm going to tell Pharaoh you're here, and I'm going to tell him that y'all are shepherds. And when he is introduced to you and you ask him what it is, and he asks you what it is that you do for a living, tell him that you're shepherds. That way they will let you dwell in the land of Goshen," which was a separate area in Egypt. Egyptians despise shepherds, so you'll be separated from them. Again, we see God's good provision for the people of Israel. This would prevent them from intermingling with the Egyptians. It would prevent them from losing their religion, as they did not end up adopting the gods of the Egyptians. They would be in a place where they were protected but despised, and they would be insignificant in the Egyptian culture. Now, we know that Joseph was obviously the second most powerful man in Egypt, but at some point Joseph passes on and his influence over things wanes, and the Israelites become slaves, as we know. And yet, we have to understand that this is all part of God's good plan, and that being in a despised position was for their safety, and it was where God brought them. It was his place for their protection, and it was where they could do the work that God had assigned for them to do. You know, a lot of times we think that if we are connected with God, he's going to bring us into a place of prominence and influence, and that it is our right as Christians in this culture to be at the center of things. And that may have been true once upon a time in America, but it is certainly not true any longer. Christians are being shoved to the edges, and it is an unfamiliar position, and we're not comfortable with it. And sometimes we strive to figure out how we can get our political power back. And we just have to recognize that earthly political power is not what we're about. We're about the power of the kingdom of heaven, which is present wherever God sends us. And that we need to remember, God delights in putting his people in obscure places. And indeed, he uses obscure people to get his work done. Remember the words of Paul in his first letter to the Corinthian church in the first chapter, beginning at the 26th verse. He says, "For consider your calling, brothers and sisters. Not many of you were wise according to worldly standards. Not many were powerful. Not many were of noble birth. But God chose what is foolish in the world to shame the wise. God chose what is weak in the world to shame the strong. God chose what is low and despised in the world, even the things that are not, to bring to nothing the things that are, so that no human being might boast in the presence of God. He is the source of your life in Christ Jesus, whom God made our wisdom and our righteousness and sanctification and redemption. Therefore, as it is written, let the one who boasts boast in the Lord." If you find yourself in an insignificant and obscure place of no importance, rejoice, because you can know that God has put you there. And if you think of yourself as an insignificant and obscure person, rejoice, because these are the people that God uses to get his work done. Yes, Joseph was put in a remarkable position of authority, but he is one of the few exceptions to this general rule. By and large, God does his greatest work through people who are unknown to the rest of the world and whom will only be known on the other side. You are exactly where God has placed you to do his work, and it is a place of protection for you, but also for the power of God to influence the world right where you are. God has chosen our place of service, and wherever we find ourselves, that's it. We don't need to worry about where we are, as long as we remember who is with us. The Lord our God is with us as he was with the people of Israel all the way down in Egypt, where they were despised. And he is with us today, wherever we are. Know this and rejoice. God's blessings be upon you this day.